Appreciate it, and thanks for having me. Super excited to chat and share some experience here. So, as David mentioned, I'm going to talk today about breaking down technology silos in order to deliver value in project delivery. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Society for Construction Solutions, which is a great group with chapters all around the world, as well as my firm, DB Partners, which offers development and construction solutions. So just a quick intro to who I am, and hopefully this sets some context for the presentation, but I actually have a mechanical engineering background. So I'm big into technical problem solving and trying to find the best way to do things. I started my career in construction, spent 6 years at Turner Construction, and then 2.5 years at WeWork before starting my own firm. And so I do have a good basis in construction project management and delivery from the ground, and spent time as a super, as an estimator, and as a project manager. In those positions, I always tried to apply technology to try to solve problems. And so that's the third part of the intro to who I am. Is I'm all about trying to apply technology into construction and into development, and using my kind of problem solving mindset as an engineer to try to improve process. And the last intro that is important is I'm definitely business minded. And so I took a lot of classes in college as well in business, and I'm trying to stay focused on return on investment in order to help businesses. So what I'm going to go through real quick today is a quick intro to NYSCS, so people do know what that is, and then I'm going to jump right into the presentation, talk about project delivery, and then go through why implementing some of these changes in your tech can really add value for your owner or lead to a return on investment. And then at the end, I can address questions and comments. So a quick plug, SCS Society for Construction Solutions. We have chapters around the world. I run the one in New York. We meet typically monthly or bi-monthly in person. This year we're doing virtual, and we typically just discuss awesome, cool innovations that are going on within the industry. And it's a very similar group as might be involved in this effort with the hackathon. I just wanted to let people know we are having a big tech disruptor showcase November 19th. We're trying to showcase the biggest tech disruptors out there. And so feel free to attend, feel free to apply. The website is ny-scs.com. A quick intro as well to my own company. So DB Partners, we offer development and construction solutions to the industry. We help owners try to strategize, typically on national accounts, TI work, retail work, repositioning work, and try to bring technology into the project management process to add value, to decrease the time frame needed for construction, and also to help people with their budgets. With that kind of tech approach, we also do offer consulting services to development and construction managers to help them with their tech stack around project management. And so that really leads me into the discussion today, which is all about how to break down tech silos to deliver value in project delivery. So the key part of that is delivering value. And for every owner, for every contractor, for every engineer, for every company, client, delivering value will change. And so, I just want to start by saying it's key to focus in on where the value is, what the value is for you, for your firm, for your project, in setting up your approach. But I will say that from my experience that as an owner and as a general contractor, delivering value definitely starts with an educated owner as well as a motivated owner. And so part of what I'll talk about is ROI, but if you're not going to give anything up front, it's hard to see anything on the back end. So if I just break down the project delivery process quickly into typical stages, you're going to see capital planning at the beginning, where you're kind of coming up with a potential project, and then you go into feasibility, where you start to come up with a conceptual plan, a conceptual budget, preliminary design. Then you're going to say, okay, let's move forward. So you start design and engineering, then you go into construction, then you go into eventually operations. And just a note, obviously this chart is not to scale, because the operations of an asset or of a building may last 10, 20, 100 years. Now, in layman's terms, what that really means is scope, schedule and cost. Now we're going to plan and figure out, okay, here's what we're going to do. Then we go and do it. And then, during operations, we're checking and adjusting. And so that really is a broken down version of the project delivery process from an owner's perspective. And what we're going to do today really is focus on this portion here, the schedule, cost, the plan, and the do. Now, projects might seem very simple if you're looking at it like this, but typically this is actually what they look like. So if you're involved in a project and you're trying to figure out who's who and who talks to who and who's got to get approval from who and all that kind of stuff, how do we all communicate as different team members? This is the more realistic diagram of what a project looks like. And another version, as an owner, you're going to have so many different key stakeholders, and all it takes is one of these folks to, have a hiccup or fail, and the whole project could fail. And so that's why a big problem I'm seeing on projects, and everyone, has probably seen similar, is if you have silos between all these different people, it's going to make progress really hard on a project. And that leads to this chart here. So if I go back to, the basic version of project delivery of capital planning all the way through feasibility, design and engineering, construction, and operations, ideally we're making progress the whole way in a linear fashion. Obviously that's probably not to scale either. But in any case, we're trying to just make progress. But what really happens is, because of these main stages and because of the different stakeholders, oftentimes on most projects, we end up with handoffs between each of these major milestones, and even handoffs between some of these milestones when you have different levels of design coming out. And so what happens is, if I just break this down into my own graph here, at each handoff, you actually take a step backwards because there's lost information, or it's a game of telephone, right? And so you're left with a decision, and you can either go at the same rate, which would be the same exact slope, and what happens is you end up with time delays, or you can accelerate and try and pick up speed, but when that happens, oftentimes quality is sacrificed and sometimes cost as well. So in order to kind of set yourself up, and I'm going to talk today really about an owner's perspective, but also what you can do as a general contractor, as a construction manager, if you feel like you're on, projects that end up looking like this. And don't worry, you're not alone, because about 98% of the construction projects around the world either end up with time delays or budget overruns. So most projects, by fact, look like this. In order to kind of combat that, I kind of break it into 5 key recommendations. Number one, it's all about an owner-driven vision. And if your owner is not there, if you're a CM or a GC, that's really where you have an ability to step in and try to help your owner. And if not, there's plenty of reading materials or events like these where you can learn. Key recommendation number 2 is setting up a common data environment, and I'll get into that, but that's good. A common data environment needs to be one place that every single stakeholder on a project can go to find the right information, have the one source of truth. Number 3 key recommendation, and this is geared more towards TI fit out work, which is where we're focused on specifically, but all about reality capture. Using reality capture in pre-con, using reality capture throughout construction, and 360 progress photos throughout construction. Number 4, BIM coordination. Not every project really may have a budget for it. Not every project may feel like it's necessary, but if everyone is bought in on the process and using it with reality capture, it's a huge asset to be able to hit the ground running from day one with everyone being on the same page. And then the last key recommendation is swim experts upstream. Get the construction manager involved from day one, get the GC involved from day one, and get a subcontractor involved, any key subcontractors involved from day one as possible. So I'm going to jump right into it here, and I'm going to give a couple examples of each of these and then talk about, why invest, what's the return on investment in each of these. So number 1 is common data environment. I threw a bunch of these out there, that are out there that people use, but there are so many options now that there really is no excuse to not have one source of truth for all things when it comes to the project. So whether it's Procore or PlanGrid or FieldWire or FieldLens or, SharePoint or BIM 360, anything out there, Google Drive. There's so many solutions, but having all your information in one place and giving every single person access to it is key. Otherwise, right, you can kind of look like this. And when I was a superintendent for a couple of years, I found myself like this, buried in paperwork, trying to find the right drawing, the right RFI, the right sketch, the right change order, just to give to the people in the field so that they knew what they were working on. It became a calamity until we actually transferred everyone over to one common data environment. And so that common data environment, oftentimes, if you're a GC, you may see it only from right here to here, right in that construction area. Let me change the color. You may only see it right here, right? Okay, we're using Procorder in the project, for example. But as an owner, if you're not using that same exact platform for all the project, you're going to run into issues, right? Because otherwise, here, handoff, here, handoff, here, handoff. And the goal of a common data environment is to be able to share information from the past to make people's lives easier and to reduce the amount of handoffs. Here's an example of what that may look like, right? So this is actually a building in New York City that was fit out last year, and you can see that by using one platform, I can send someone to a job site to take a 360 walkthrough in Matterport, then give the designer access to that same exact information to come up with their design. And now if I'm a construction manager or project manager and I'm trying to figure out, okay, how much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take? This is very cut and dry, right side, left side of, okay, what are we doing? Now, at the same time, I may pass this to my contractors to say, hey, instead of, looking at the drawings and trying to figure out what scope is what, for patching the ceiling where it's going to say, do what needs to be done, go visit the site, et cetera. This is a very clear picture of scope. Additionally, if I'm looking at right side, left side as a project manager, as a subcontractor, I can pick up a change order that's going to happen before I even get on site and make sure I include that in the bid. And what that does is that minimizes time delays, right? Because in no project is there ever room for RFIs or change orders. It's never baked into any schedule. And so what I just tagged here is, oh, shoot, it looks like someone wants this column to be exposed, intumescent paint, beautiful, but we've got some pipes in the way here. So let's come up with a different solution. I'd rather find that before I get on site and not step foot on site and then figure out, okay, we've got to, do a sheetrock enclosure, come up with some sort of plan, because that's just going to create a delay. And now my owner's upset because his budget just went up because someone missed it. So this is one use case of a, common data environment. Someone from CM or GC went and surveyed the site. They shared the information with everyone, including the architect, including the designer, including the owner, and now everyone's got information they need to make the decisions they need to as their own key stakeholders on a project. I'm going to just keep going with this example. So, why invest in something like this is it's all about speeding up your time frame to deliver information, right? So instead of having 15 different people go to site, walk, survey for what they need to see, an owner can take this on, do a Matterport or similar, send this around to everyone, and the speed of delivery of design as well as planning and construction will increase. Increased translation of information at key milestones. So again, you're trying to limit how much information falls through the cracks at each of the key milestones by sharing as much information as possible. You have your one source of truth. It's super easy using any of these platforms just to find information on the go versus having to run back to your office or your field office to find information. Your workforce utilization increases. This is pretty key. It happens across the board on a lot of these things, but I'm all about making sure that your administrative burn reduces. And what that means is instead of everyone having people that do administrative work to stay organized, why not take it on, in kind of one office as a project management office or as an owner to keep the whole project organized and reduce the amount of administrative work people are doing so that they can spend more time doing the job that they're getting paid to do. And of course, something like this and having all the information in one place truly adds value in the turnover process to your facilities team when they're left to run a building for 20 years or plus. And then of course, less double work. I'm going to continue through the example I just showed at that location in New York, but this is just an example of what that may look like on a floor plan. And what you're seeing with all these dots is basically a punch list pre-possession of the space that's picking up all these existing conditions. And oftentimes when I was a GC, I would do this as a superintendent my first day on site. But while that had myself covered, it doesn't have my owner covered. It actually ends up pissing off the owner because now we should be starting construction, but we're not because I just flagged 40 RFIs that should have been picked up earlier. Now, I can pick this up if I'm a GC and I'm involved from day one, right? This is swimming experts upstream a bit. I can go to a site before the design is even cooked at this point, pick up all these existing conditions I know are going to slow us down, and now I could even write that directly into a budget for the owner. And that way, what we're looking at on this screen is just a quick clip of a pro forma, right? And in a pro forma underwriting any sort of real estate deal, you're always going to see a number here for the construction budget. And typically, this is where you could either make or break your project. And so by bringing someone further upstream, by using a common data environment, getting contractors in to do something like this from day one really helps de-risk the project. Now, why do due diligence or pre-construction and common data environment? Why invest? Again, it's quicker time frame to compile information for feasibility. It's a lot less double work. I don't need to send an architect there to survey and then an engineer to survey and then a contractor to survey and then a subcontractor to survey. You bring them all in together from day one and you set the scope right from day one and design right into it with the right budget. Now, I'm going to go into reality capture real quick. So just a use case here, right? Again, back in the TI world, with reality capture, especially in buildings that I'm used to working in New York City, I go to take a building and it may be from the 1980s or the 1960s or the early 1900s. There may not even be drawings, right? So of course, in that scenario, it's key to do some sort of reality capture, and it's a lot quicker to send someone in there with a Faro scanner than it is to go and field survey with clipboard. It's a lot more accurate too. Just another example is floor flatness, walls not being in the right place, staircase not being in the right place, facades not being straight. So it's trying to pick up with reality capture all those existing conditions that you're just going to get billed with, come construction. You just want to pick that up from day one. You could do that with reality capture. By doing that, your documents are going to be right from day one. So you're going to speed up your time frame come construction to be able to hit the ground running. That means your accuracy is going to be a lot better when you actually start construction. You can mitigate your existing conditions delays and cost overruns. You open up an opportunity for prefabrication, right? Because with a point cloud and a scan, you could really take true measurements. And on a project in New York last year, or 2 years ago now actually, we used the scan and then the BIM model to actually prefabricate a stair opening and brought it right into site and flat packed and assembled it on site. And so really opens the window for prefabbing or kit of parts and TI work. And then of course you're connecting the field to the office, right? And so, I don't really like having a BIM person or a modeler or an engineer totally spending all the time in the field. They're more effective to me designing at their desk, but with the right information that they need. To go into BIM coordination real quick, this is kind of where BIM may straddle in most processes today in terms of where it comes into play. Now, more often than not, though, in the GC world of things, you're often making your own BIM model from start. And that to me is a huge problem because there's no way you can start construction the same day as you're awarded the job if you're just going to start BIM coordination here. So in my day as a GC, I saw this a lot because we weren't bid, in time. And so construction was supposed to start, and instead we're doing BIM coordination, and we're not actually starting. And so my recommendation here is, let me show a chart as to why, but this is actually from a couple jobs last year that we did. And what happened was, by not starting BIM coordination until, construction's supposed to start, guess what happens? Construction doesn't actually start. And so this is a graph of manpower on the job site, labor on the job site. And you see that on 6 jobs that I surveyed of how many people were there, we had about a 3 to 4 week gap where really not much activity was happening because we were still doing BIM coordination and submittals. So that's where I say on the BIM coordination side, again, swim people in early, push it back into design and engineering. And if the architect and the engineer don't want to take on that scope because it's not their responsibility, no problem, bring a contractor or bring a BIM services company in and get the actual coordination done in pre-construction. And that way you can actually have, your sign off before you start. And when you're supposed to start construction, you can have ductwork there. To break that into some bite-sized chunks, BIM coordination has to start, if it's going to start in design and engineering, it really has to start early on. So there's a due diligence where you first really, set the stage on BIM coordination by looking at all the existing conditions and even doing a scan if you have the ability to. Then during, your design set, you focus on the mains. During the next set, your permit set, you're going to do a full coordination. And that way, once you're at 100% CD, you can do a full BIM sign off. Platforms there, Navisworks, any of the Autodesk platforms are great. And this is just this kind of shows what you can do, right? We're picking up columns that aren't straight. We're totally trying to pick up, water heaters or ductwork with real dimensions instead of what you may see on an engineering set, which is diagrammatic only. And so with this, you can do your BIM, you can do your clash, and you can actually go right into shop drawings by the time you have 100% CDs. Just a quick example, this is from another job in New York, but I opened up the drawings and the BIM model. The BIM model was passed to ourselves to manage in pre-construction, and we actually were able to do the whole MEP design now, right? And what that ran into on this job was someone wanted to keep a nice staircase here, looks great. However, the schematic set showed ductwork right over the stairwell, and so we're able to pick this issue up with the point cloud from day one and not have it be a change order once we get to site. And so I'm seeing, okay, ductwork's running over the stairs, that height's not going to work. I can see existing piping in the scan, that existing piping is there, great, and I can come up with a solution that's going to move the team forward in pre-construction and not delay the job. And then once it comes to the field, there are plenty of solutions today with Autodesk especially, but even with Procore and the others, is you've got to get the model in the hands of the supers. There's no reason not to have the model in the hands of the people doing the work, the supers, the foremen, the trades folks, using it as a reference to understand what they are building and what the design intent is. So this, to me, 1,000 times over, I'm going to look at this rather than look at a drawing, because this actually gives me some color in terms of what we want to build at the end of the day. So why invest on the BIM coordination side of things? You hit the ground running. Your speed to market's incredible if you can get all your ducks in a row. Your first time quality should be there because you do the scan first and then you end up doing coordination and clash. Coordination delays and cost implications are in pre-construction, and so you reduce the amount or the effect that has on the construction period. And the biggest kind of metaphor is, if you're a sports player, you're never going to show, or even if you're, we'll give the example of football. If you're a football player, you're never going to show up and just play in the Super Bowl, right? And so doing this stuff before you get to the game is essentially you're practicing and you're making sure you have everything right before you show up for the game. And on game day, everything's got to go per the plan. Now, reality capture still can continue throughout construction. This is a really good example of a 360 walk via Matterport in pre-construction. I gave the example a bit earlier, right? But you could see on this job, there's a lot of scope for patching, right? There's this that has to get patched, there's all this that has to get patched. And so that can be a pretty big price. Now, if I were to look at the drawings in a traditional world without my 360 Matterport, what it says is contractor to patch and repair existing column conditions to receive specified finish per the finished plant. Okay. It also says GC to patch and repair all existing walls as required and prepare the existing walls for new finishes, existing ratings to be maintained throughout construction, typical. So in this example, every exterior wall is gray. All the columns are gray. All the core walls are gray. And so if I'm a carpenter, I have probably three options here. I can either be the low guy and exclude everything that's gray, and from this, without having access to this 360 walkthrough, so just looking at the drawings and not looking at this, just looking at the drawings, I'm going to say, I don't really know what that means. Could mean anything. So I'm just going to qualify something and give it really low, because if I give something that covers them, I'm probably going to lose the job in a bid situation. That's option number one. Option number two, as a carpenter, okay, interesting. Maybe I'll put $50,000 or something in there for the floor, and I'll just qualify. I've got a $50,000 allowance, and hopefully that's right. Option number three is, oh man, I really don't want to get screwed over. I've seen some bad jobs in the past, and it's really held us up, and I'm going to put as much money as possible to make sure that they get what they want, and there's no quality that's sacrificed when it comes to turning over the job. And so in those three scenarios, all are potentially right, but all are misinformed because they don't have the information they need, right? And so if I'm a general contractor or an owner and I'm leveling the job, I'm likely going to take the low guy because that's more attractive. And then the low guy is going to show up and say, well, I didn't know about this. How could I have known? All these columns are gray, for example. And so that's why sharing this, and very simple, but sharing a Matterport or any other of the other 360 photo platforms out there today, sharing that with your general contractor, your architect, your subcontractor, all the way down the line, there is absolutely no harm in doing so. And this is what at the end of construction, now I can go back and look at, okay, that's what it was. On the left, that's what it became. Wow, this is great. If I'm a facilities person, I can kind of use this throughout construction to monitor where rough-in is going. So if I have any capital improvement work after the fact, I can plan better. And so 360 capture throughout construction is really, really a huge asset. Now, there are plenty of options for 360 capture. There's OpenSpace, there's HoloBuilder, Construction Site, Procore's got integrations with all those, EarthCam, Matterport, FieldLens. So just a couple of solutions there, PlanGrid on the 360 side. And then on the camera side, if you're not doing this now and you're trying to figure out where to start, you've got the Matterport camera, a little higher end. You've got the 361X, about $400, a great investment, or the Theta, which is also about $400 and a great investment to use over your head. So why invest in the 360 walkthrough and reality capture? Speeding up your time frame to solve field delays. I didn't really talk about this, but if you've got projects around the US, or if you have teams that are working on multiple projects, then they would be better served if they were on site every day, which is impossible. When issues do come up, to be able to open up a 360 walkthrough and answer a question really keeps things moving for architects, for engineers, for owners. You reduce the strain on your overhead resources because you could send one guy to site if you need to and share it with 100 people. You're connecting your field to your office people. Everyone's on the same page. Everyone's delivering in unison. Better staff, resource utilization again, and your historical documentation truly adds value for your facilities team come operations. So again, just to kind of reset to where we started, without really the key concept I was trying to hammer today is just share the information, right? And if you have an owner that's coming up with a good vision and is willing to invest in this type of, different software, if it's laser scanning, BIM coordination, 360 capture, a common data environment, and be the shepherd of those platforms from capital planning all the way through operations, you can try to minimize this exact graph here, which is showing, handoffs and misinformation and everyone holding their own information to themselves. What will happen, right? So when it comes back to the summary here, it's all about the owner-driven vision, setting up a common data environment from day one all the way through operation, utilizing reality capture to bring real dimensions, real accuracy, real quality from day one in design, utilize BIM coordination and bring everyone upstream, right? If you're building a hospital, bring a doctor in. If you're building a stadium, bring a fan in. If you're building an office, bring a tenant in. Bring them into the virtual world so that they see what they're getting and that you make sure you're building what they need, because if you're not building what they need, they're not buying. If they're not buying, you're not building, right? So it's all about quality and sales there, and you can do that with some of these recommendations here. With that, I did a lot of talking. If there are any chat, questions, Q&A, you can send them now. If not, this is the easiest way to get a hold of me. And Damon, again, thank you for the time and for allowing me to share my thoughts here, and hopefully that was helpful for folks.